Hi everyone. So I'm just going to show my screen. So my name is Deirdre and I am the Principal Environmental Health Officer in Dublin Port. We also have colleagues in Rosslare Airport, and we are now operating a 24/7 service to facilitate the movement of foods of non-animal origin through Dublin and Rosslare. So the categories of foods that come under environmental health control are any product that is a food of non-animal origin, and that is excluding pesticides, which Joe just discussed, because they go in under DAFM. Some of the composite products with less than 50% animal origin, however, these are not subject to increased controls at the moment unless they're listed, and then some food contact materials. I'm very briefly going to go through a few kind of the overview of the food, because what we are finding is that drivers are turning up and they do not know that there is food on their consignment, and that they should have submitted that documentation to us for review because it's been triggered by revenue as a HSE risk. So we deal with kind of very everyday foods. So we have rice, we have peppers, we have spices, we have black pepper, sesame seeds. Those products are products that come under food safety import controls, and they are done by environmental health in the HSE. We also deal with some food contact materials, and we are noticing traders who, they are not food importers, but might be bringing in kind of bulk loads of other products, are getting triggered for a HSE risk because they have one of the following in their load. So if they have any infant feeding bottles, they need to make a declaration to us. Email addresses are at the end, so if you email us and ask for the declaration, you can have it on file. And then if you know you're bringing in anything that is going to trigger an infant feeding bottle, you send in the declaration to say that it does not contain bisphenol A. And the other one is plastic kitchenware, only from China and Hong Kong, but importers are correctly declaring these products as originating in China, and so they are triggering for us as a control. And again, we are just checking for the presence of polyamine and melamine. So again, if you know you're bringing in these products, we'd ask that you have a file copy of the declaration, and then you would send that in with your consignment information when you are bringing it in. So products from the GB, so it's now a third country, and we are first point of entry into the EU. So for example, if rice is from China, that would be coming under an increased control for us. If it's imported into Liverpool and then imported into Dublin, it'll be subject to an official control from our side. So we have, and this is what Joe just referred to, the product subject to increased control, the legislation is the same as the legislation for pesticides. So it's under Regulation 2019/1793 as amended. And that lists all the products. If you go to the most up-to-date version, as Joe rightly said, it's 2020/65. And then the summary down here, I have left a link in here of all the FSAI import control regulations for the foods of non-animal origin. So that is a good kind of reference for all those products, and it includes, say, the feeding bottles and the polyamine and the melamine. So products subject, the document checks that we do on foods of non-animal origin. So at the moment, no products coming from GB are subject to increased controls, with the exception of sprouting seeds. But despite the fact that they're not subject to increased controls, they are still triggering a HSE risk. So depending on the country of origin that could have been declared on it, or depending on, say, the food product, or whatever it is on that consignment, it could be one item on a consignment of 100 that is triggering a risk and will mean that we then need to do a documentary check. So what we are asking is that we can do these document checks before the product even leaves the UK. So if you send in your documentation to environmental health before your product leaves the UK, preferably 24 hours in advance, we will have that document check done, and only if there is any issues, and we'll be going back to you if there's any issues, but if there's any issues, then that might be causing the delay in the port. But if not, we will release it, and it will be released with revenue, and then when it arrives in Dublin, it will get a green good to go routing from HSE. So that is the aim, what we want. We're operating 24/7 to facilitate this. Most products will result in a green routing, don't require any intervention, and only a small percentage is what we do for physical exams at the moment, and that's a risk-based approach. We pick what is coming in as a non-compliant document check, or we come in that we are doing under our chemical sampling plan. So in terms of what information to send, so Joe and Noreen went through the traces system. So if your product is subject to increased controls, you will need to submit a CHED-D on traces. And that is exactly the same procedure that Joe just went through in relation to his products he mentioned in relation to pesticides. So I don't want to go through that. It's all down to making sure you put in the correct CN codes, but you do need to make sure that you have the documentation, you have that traces done if you are subject to increased controls, okay? So it's only about 50 products, but it does need to be done. Any other product, if you're bringing in foods of non-animal origin, you email us the documentation, and then again, I'll have them at the end. And if you send that to us in advance, we will do a check on them. We're asking so that when it's emailed to us, the products, we don't have as fancy a system as the Department of Agriculture, but it's exactly the same information that we're looking for. So we're looking for the country of origin, when is it going to arrive, vehicle registration number, the MRN is very important. We cannot release a consignment to revenue unless we receive the MRN for that consignment. And then in terms of associated documentation, we're looking for CHED-D, the lab reports, the ingredients list, bill of lading, packing list, commercial invoices. We need as much information as you can give us. We will be able to use that in our document check. So if it's any of these items and you have it to hand, send it in for the consignment. Be available to answer any queries you might have on it, and if there's a problem, we'll come back and tell you. If you are submitting any of the two plastics I mentioned, we're looking for a declaration of omission in relation to the plasticware. So I suppose what we're asking you to consider is who is submitting that documentation, and then we are also asking if there is a problem with it, and if we want more information or another piece of documentation, who will send that to us at the time your consignment arrives in the port. So we are noticing drivers are turning up and handing us a piece of paper that doesn't have any kind of, that it's all they have for their consignment. And when we go looking for more information, there's nobody available to send us more information for that consignment. So if you know your truck driver, your consignment is arriving in at 11 p.m. at night, please make sure you sent in the documentation in advance, and that any queries or problems with that documentation can be dealt with then during the time that you are working, or that you are available to answer those queries so that your truck won't be delayed whilst we pend it. Also consider that there may be dual controls on your consignment. So depending on how many products you have on your packing list, you may need to consider sending the documentation to multiple places. So you could have, if it was a supermarket trolley, you could have controls being required by all 4 different areas: pesticides, HSE, agriculture for the vets. And you may need to send the information to multiple places to be able to get the whole control, the whole consignment cleared. The other thing in terms of minimizing delays is just making sure you use the dedicated emails for our products, so that food of non-animal origin, if you're bringing it in through Dublin or if you're bringing it in through Rosslare, there's 2 dedicated email addresses. Making sure that you have your country of origin accurately declared. So if you are bringing in a bag of rice, that bag of rice was not grown in GB, it was grown in a third country somewhere else, so that you're accurately declaring where that bag of rice. If it has been manufactured or processed in GB, then it is a GB product. And making sure all the documentations are completed correctly. So just in a summary, we're asking as much as possible that you send in paperwork in advance of arrival. And if you're in doubt and you don't know whether we will want to see it or not, we are happy to still do a control check on it. And if there's no problem, we will release it to revenue so that it doesn't become an issue. The majority of our products will be a routine check, and they'll just be document checks, they'll be risk assessed, and they will progress through the port, but that is on the basis that we've received the documentation. And I think that's it. So the 2 main email addresses is importcontroldublin@hse.ie, and if you're importing through Rosslare, it's importcontrolrosslare@hse.ie. and those are for any food not of animal origin. Thank you.